Welcome back, everybody, to the Nude and Lude podcast. I am Julie Cole.
And I'm Joanna Derrick. This is episode 14.
14, and we're here to talk about the new year. We'll introduce that in a second.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So yesterday was Christmas.
It was.
So today is December 26th when we're actually recording this. It won't be this day when it's put out, but
yeah.
And did you have a good Christmas?
I did. It was very low key.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I love low key.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, both high key and low key have its good things and bad, just different. Thanksgiving was crazy.
Yeah.
With all the people.
Yeah.
And Christmas was not. So.
Yep, I get that.
Which just furthers my, can we go somewhere for Christmas?
Yeah.
With my family.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's
always low key Christmas. Let's go somewhere.
There's a song in that.
Yeah.
I'm all stopped up still. My allergies have been going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody else have winter allergies? Oh, Scott's raising his hand. I mean, it's terrible. My eyes get all itchy and swollen, and I'm just like this,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Just when my oldest brings her dogs.
Yeah.
Then I get them.
The grand dogs.
The grand dogs, yeah.
So I'll do a point of gratitude real
Okay.
quick, which is I really appreciate a low-key Christmas. Like, I had a lot of gratitude just for my family this time. We were able to connect real meaningfully, play a couple of games, and just have a good dinner. And I was really proud of my kids, too. Like, we gave them, their gifts, and then we had their big gifts kind of hidden away, like the things that they really, really wanted. And I just pretended like we didn't have them, and to see how they would react,
That's mean, girl.
asshole mom. You know what? They were both really sweet.
Yeah.
They were just like, thanks for everything. And I could see, like my eldest, I could tell she was a little disappointed, but she was not. She did so good.
Like shitty about it.
No,
Yeah.
very, very kind and generous. And I was like, oh my God, now I feel like an asshole.
You should. That's mean.
So I came out. I was like, oh my God, look at this. I found these. And they were so excited, but they were really grateful for what they had. It was really sweet.
I bet. I bet.
So I was grateful. It just gave me a glimpse into, when you think your kid's going to react a certain way and they surprise you with a really mature or, reaction. Not always, but this time they did.
It's a breath of fresh air.
It was. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Gratitude for me. Yeah, I'm grateful for am I? I don't know. For a low-key Christmas. I kind of like the craziness of the holidays. It was kind of crazy leading up to it with all the kids at the house and everything, but
yeah, you had a load of people come in, and another one leave, and another one come in.
Yeah, and then Christmas Eve, I had like 10 people at the house spending the night in my little 1,500 square foot 3-bedroom house. It was fun, though. It was very fun. I think I'm grateful. At one point, everyone had left my house, including Colton. He'd gone with his siblings to their dad, my ex-husband's house. Yeah. And it was just my dad and I, and he and I need to have a conversation, and I just chose not to. Like, I didn't feel like it. I could tell that he was like nervous that I was going to try and bring it up. And so I just decided to table it and let's just have a nice Christmas Eve together, you know? And that was great. Like, there's no deadline to have this conversation, and there's no pressure. The only pressure is coming from myself, and it doesn't have to happen until I'm ready.
Which is a great point that, so much of when we have long-term relationships, whether they're intimate in the sense that it's a intimate partner, whether it's family, some things, some relationships are irreconcilable.
Right.
But in most relationships, there's a lot of conflict points that will never see the light of resolution.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to really pick what your big things are that you want to, pick the big things that you want to battle about and that are important. And they really should align with what's important with them too. That's part of suffering ourselves in relationships.
Yeah. And I've kind of gotten to the point where, yes, unless in relationship with people that I care about, unless they yell at me.
Yeah. Or they're harmful.
Then I can wait.
Yeah.
It can wait.
Yeah.
They'll still be there. I'll still be there.
Yeah.
There's no add to it, you know?
Oh, yeah. Anytime that I feel like there has to be immediate resolution, I'm almost always being driven by my trauma, and I'm going to create more of a mess.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I can't, if I can't sit with it, it's not intuitive.
Right.
Which kind of leads us to our topic for today.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about New Year, New You, right?
Oh, it's so sweet.
Not. I'm going to say.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I'm going to say this. Scott with our sound effects. I'm going to say this, and I will contextualize it. But the topic of this is that the pursuit of the authentic self is absolute bullshit.
Yes.
I'm going to sit with that for a sec.
Hard stop.
The pursuit of our authentic self is bullshit.
Yes.
It's bullshit. It keeps us self-contained and trapped in a prison that's externalized to fate, leaving us taking no responsibility for where our lives go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say it leaves most of us in either fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, or fawn.
Or fawn.
People pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I love that. And so I want to really we want to dig in, and we had some points that we brought up beforehand, but I think I want to contextualize what I mean when I say it. Somehow in the last 5-10 years, especially since, I would call it the Instagram revolution, right?
Yeah.
Because Instagram doesn't leave a lot of room for context,
right? Because
it's short text,
Yeah.
Twitter even more so. But like in terms of, stuff, so what happens is we have this idea that there's this authentic self out there that we're meant to discover, and that we'll find peace and contentment in our life when we discover that authentic self that's waiting out there for us. And so when we do that, we leave ourselves literally like a ship in the storm, just being tossed about by life, and we literally abdicate our responsibility for our lives to fate.
Yeah.
Or to God. We're not going to get into that one right now.
Yeah.
But it's that's a real big way that people, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll just say abuse a relationship with a higher power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I feel you on that one. It's a tough expressing that in words that are not highly inflammatory.
Yeah, and that's not even the word I'm looking for, but it's literally because, we have self-will, even in that relationship. We have self-will. We have gifts. We have things, right? So, okay, so let's deep.
Well, real quick, can I tell me if this is what you're thinking? Yeah. That analogy or that little whatever the word is of the guy that's on his roof and the rain's coming down and the boat comes and the helicopter comes and something else comes and he ends up dying and then goes to heaven and he's like, God, why didn't you save me? And God's like, I sent you.
Yeah.
Yeah. A boat, a helicopter and something else.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of what you're saying right now.
Absolutely. It's also the idea that, so yes, that's a piece of it, right? It's also is this the right person for me? Is this a person God sent for me? It's like God doesn't care about the person. He cares about how we show up with the person, right?
Yeah.
God doesn't care about the car. He cares about how we value the things in our lives and prioritize the things in our lives. And when we abdicate it to if this is God's will or not, we don't take responsibility for that piece. Yeah. Of how we show up in it, because it's either God's will or it's not. If it's God's will, we're locked into it come hell or high water. It's the same idea of having a soulmate. Right. Like there's one soulmate out there for us, which goes back to something we were talking about before, which I tell everybody, and JP tells everybody, like we are evolved versions of old stories for each other. JP is an evolved version of an old story. Right. And when he's not in a good place, he can turn into an unevolved version he can turn into a similar version of the old story. Yeah. And when devolves. Yes. Yeah. Right.
We all devolve.
And we collectively evolve because we take responsibility for that part. Yeah. And so I think that's the part is like sometimes we believe something's meant for us. Mm-hmm. This authentic thing or this purposeful thing or this thing. And then we just literally abdicate all responsibility to every decision we have in that actually helps us be purposeful, grow,
Yeah.
We find ourselves in a lot of situations where we blame everybody else for our outcomes.
Yes.
Right? That's why, people are always looking for a new get rich scheme. Right?
Yeah.
People are always looking for a new way to lose weight. That's always my favorite one.
Yeah, and especially around this time of year, we're really getting into
everybody wants to do the thing that's going to be like the 6-week weight loss thing, and it's like, I see people and they're like, "You look great." I'm like, "Yeah, I've lost 50 pounds over 3 years."
Yeah.
And it's funny because I used to, I would lose the 20 pounds by doing keto or whatever, and then I'd put on 25, and then I'd lose 20 pounds. And I lost 20 pounds 20 different times, but I also put on 50 pounds in the process collectively. And this is all when I was being the healthiest I've ever been, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm like, what would it look like if I just from today, a year from now, I made some changes that supported. And I take time to just sit in maintenance too, because then I don't have to eat a 1,200 calorie diet to continue to lose weight. I can eat 2,400 calories and lose weight.
Yeah.
And then get down into a deficit and then sit in that and do maintenance. And then I up my calories again, but keep my same weight.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
So one of the things I realized recently, I'm going to segue into this, is this happened to me when I was burnt out. I was like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. And so I've spent the last couple of years being tossed about my life, trying to figure out who this person is I'm supposed to be, lamenting old versions of myself. And then something happened one day. It clicked. Like the old versions of myself were my authentic self at that time. And I've evolved. And so the authentic self is something that we are now, and we're constantly evolving, right? It's part of the growth process. So I'm authentic in the present, but then I'm responsible for where I go in the future. Not that I'm not authentic now and then I move towards authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
See the difference?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, this story keeps coming up in my head. Not like
I gotta take this thing off.
Like a literal story that happened Christmas Eve, and it was a real eye opener. And I keep thinking about it as you're talking, and I'm thinking about this topic. So we do the Christmas pajamas, Christmas Eve night, and I had these funny T-shirts made for the dudes. I had these funny T-shirts made for the girls. And we're taking our, Mary Jordan, my oldest, sets her phone up, and we take the pictures and end up taking like 60 pictures, So anyway, towards the end of it, everyone was getting very weary of taking pictures. Sure. But Mary Jordan and I both appreciate the perfect picture, So we were like, no, you got to keep going. So Ames, my son-in-law, Mary Jordan's husband, is posted up on my couch, kind of like this, like with his leg up. And my dad is sitting like in the gap here. And Ames rips the biggest fart I think I've ever heard in my life. It was so fucking funny. And
on Bob.
On my dad's head. Yeah. His wife's grandfather's head. Yes. And to know my dad, you would know that my dad, like, we weren't allowed to say fart in my house growing up. We were not allowed to fart around him because he has this very real phobia that the particulates from a fart, if he inhales them, they're getting in his lung. And so he has someone else's swirling ass gas in his lungs.
Can we pull that out as a clip? Yes. Swirling gas in his lungs.
Ass gas in his lungs. So Ames farts. My dad jumps up and is like Rumpelstiltskin, I jump up because I'm laughing so hard, start peeing myself, like truck my dad to get by him to run back to the bathroom to take my clothes off. My brand new pajamas that I've just put on have now been urinated in.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the shower rinsing off and just laughing my ass off by myself. And this funny thing happened though, like this little shame thing started creeping in. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is so embarrassing. This should be embarrassing to me. I can't believe that we did this in front of my dad. And like, is this really who we are, you know? And I had this resounding like, yeah, this is who we are. This is our family culture.
Yeah.
And the majority. My dad is a one-off on this, although I think he secretly enjoys it.
Yeah.
You know, but I had this like, I had to stand in it and just become comfortable in it and accept it, you know, and like this, I don't know, maybe you can put it into words, and I know you don't know like exactly how I was feeling, but I'm sure that because your family is a funny family also, you know, and y'all do a lot of funny, maybe off the cuff kind of things.
Yeah, my 9-year-old is regularly like, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" He's like, "What?" She's like, "Rah." And he's like, "Guess what?" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Rah."
Right.
I'm like,
like it's like that we're taught that we, you know, should be mature and we should be all of these things, but I don't want to be like that. Like that, and that is part of my authentic self.
Well, and the irony of this is that in your dad, whether intentionally or not, when he did not allow those things, he created this push-pull tension that actually created the environment for it to be the family culture.
Yes, that left me as a child and now as an adult, like, constantly wanting to like say, fart, you know, or like just crank one out.
Yeah. Well, and ironically, what happens when I crank one out, I know, I always laugh because so you know, Matt and Bonnie, who so Matt's JP's, they run JP's mentoring group that he's in, and I laugh because somebody asked her on social media recently, they're like, "Do you and Matt fart in front of each other?" She's like, "You know, what heathens don't?" You know, like she was like, "Are you human if you don't?" So I was like laughing because, or all the, you know, Instagram reels or TikToks about people who act like they came in from being, and they're like me walking in for my first date. They waved the door and closed the door and then let out the longest fart
that they've been holding for hours.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's comedy because it's true, you know. But you bring up a great point about this topic, which is that when we try to avoid, like, so when we try to, a lot of what we think we're getting to with our authentic selves is unpeeling the pieces of ourselves that don't work, that we picked up through the years, whether through somebody else or through our own perception of what we should look like, right? But that's why doing it in the moment is authentic. It's not why unpeeling it and getting to this destination is not authentic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yes. Right. So I laugh because, you know, Bob's trying to be his authentic self in some ways, but he's probably not fully being you know what I mean? Right. In the moment.
Because who doesn't think a fart's funny?
Right. Who doesn't?
Maybe not on their head, but.
Which takes me, can I tell you a sad segue? This is the age we are. So I saw my GP last week for a regular checkup. Yeah. I have a friend who's writing me about getting a mammogram. I'm getting ready to turn 47 and I've never had a mammogram. Okay. So she's writing me about it. And so I go in and I'm like, "Listen, I need to see you so I can set up a mammogram." She's like, "Okay, here's everything you do." And she's like, they just moved the recommendations for colonoscopy back from 50 to 45. And she's like, "You have two options. You can do the standard colonoscopy or you can do this at home colon rest screening test." And I was like, "Well, what does that entail?" And she said, "You basically have to poop in a box." And I said, "So this is our generation's version of dick in a box." And she just cracked up laughing. She's like, "Since we're all sending that video around to each other right now," I was like, "So this is the part where we reach out to Justin Timberlake and we say, so we do this whole thing. If you relate to these things, it's time to
put
poop
your shit in a box.
Yeah, poop in a box.
Take your dick out and put your shit in."
That's right. So we are getting to that age where you have to poop in a box. So we were laughing so hard about that.
Because is he our age, Justin Timberlake?
He's just a hair younger.
Okay. Yeah.
But I had to laugh.
That's funny. Yeah.
So, you know, dick in a box no longer. We're now pooping in boxes. So I don't know. Anyway,
I think it's funny.
I told him that. JP's like, "There's no comparison to dick in a box and a poop in a box. Let me just be really clear." I'm like, there might be for some people. Just saying. But not for him.
Yes.
Okay, now we're past our humorous interlude. Okay. So it's funny that this is coming up. I was just talking to a therapy client about this right before this, which is that when we push away, like she's trying to, enact she's early recovery, trying not to drink. And she's like, I absolutely cannot ever drink again. And I was like, how does that make you feel when you say that? She's like, it really makes me want to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens when you say, I choose not to drink today?
It's tolerable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what happens is a lot of times we pick up these rigid rules. They're taught to us for sure, but at the time that we're in our 40s, we're solely responsible for the way these things are in our lives, right? We have evolving versions of seeing it, but the truth is it's not a switch you flip on and off. And if it still is, there's something within us we're contending with. Our parents have had us out of the house for decades at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so what we do, and this happens with trauma too. A great example of this is saying, I have trauma, so I'm not responsible for my shit because I have trauma. But we're responsible for it, and as far as we see it and evolving it. And another version of this, and I'll leave this, I saw the other day, somebody said, this is the whole manifesting thing, and I'm going to be cautious about, criticizing this, because manifesting is part of what we're talking about, but not manifesting in that we manifest our dreams and then we don't do anything to make them happen. We just dream about it and then get mad when it doesn't happen. A lot of people give credit to manifesting and don't give credit to the footwork they did. Mm-hmm. Even God expects us to have footwork. We have free will.
Yeah, you remind me of that about myself.
Yeah,
a lot.
We have
also the progress.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We're responsible for putting our boots to the ground.
Yeah.
But I saw a thing the other day and somebody said, how did I go from, how did I manifest my dreams? Well, this year I got into therapy and I healed my trauma. And I was like, oh, girl, I can't wait to see what your life looks like in 3 years. When you realize that you're still acting in your trauma, because we don't heal it. We evolve it, we grow, but contextually, as I grow and change, so does the way my trauma shows up in my nervous system, the way it shows up in my interactions.
Yeah.
It doesn't get healed. Pieces of it get healed, but the way it's in my nervous system. So it's always, so it's coping strategies.
Yeah.
And I have to be responsible for that too. Thinking that I'm going to heal the thing that gives me ill, right? That makes me feel sad, hurt, angry, upset, relationally fucked up. Healing is an evolution and I'm responsible for that. Thinking that I healed it takes away responsibility.
Yeah. 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 And it may be true.
Sure.
That I've healed
elements of it.
An element of it, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I'm no longer acting out in this way because of it.
Yeah.
But to think that we've healed the whole ball of wax is a fallacy.
Oh, for sure.
And it what we were saying earlier about this whole like authentic self and that there is this arrival and or destination point, keeps us locked up.
Yeah.
And it does take away our responsibility for our lives. And even more painful is it leaves us, or it leaves me with hopelessness and this and lack of creativity that I can curate my own life to a huge degree.
Oh, absolutely. And understanding.
And that is sad.
Yeah.
That is sad that there, because of current culture, in a lot of different like realms of life and psychology and counseling and all that kind of stuff that has been coming through the pipeline for the last 10 years, that we have locked ourselves up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know how many people I say, what would it look like if you work for yourself? They're like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you could. Now, understanding there's privilege wrapped into that.
Another
like
thing you remind me of all the time.
Yeah, if you have no backup plan, if you've got no cushion, if you're somebody who has no family that can help, or for JP and I, we have a degree. It's like when we launched Cole Wellness, we have our degrees to fall back on. If we needed to go back and work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week for somebody else for a salary, we could do it, right? We knew that we couldn't lose in that respect.
Yeah.
We had our equipment. We worked part-time. He worked part-time to build up his income, so he was matching his income, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of that stuff. And at the end of the day, I have family that support, we have family that's supportive of us, I mean, if all hell broke loose, like if the pandemic had happened and we hadn't have been able to work and we'd lost everything, our family's not going to let us lose our house, right?
Yeah.
It looks very different for somebody who has to walk in and get a predatory lending, loan, a high interest business loan.
Yeah.
Or use somebody to fund them who compromises their capacity to make their decisions, or, it looks very different. So I understand that. I want to hold that with care and concern and cautiousness. I don't believe that everybody who wants to go start their own business has that capacity.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge statement of privilege for a lot of people.
For sure.
But we don't have to live like tied to a 40-hour a week job the way we used to.
Yeah.
We just don't.
Thank God.
Yeah. There's lots of options. We don't have to stay in the same relationship we've been in for years.
Yeah.
Even within the context of the same relationship.
Yes.
It can evolve and look different.
Yeah.
Which actually does segue into what we had talked about.
What?
So some of this is also seeing ourselves from the lens of self-compassion.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And understanding that we do attract to us. Like we do attract to us, the extent to which we grow is the extent to which we wrestle with ourselves. So if we keep attracting the same partner, there's something about us that attracts that person.
Yeah.
Right? If we keep finding ourselves in the same dynamic in work environments, there's something about ourselves that is attracted to that work environment. And getting curious about that.
Yes.
Is so important.
Yes. And I am attracting strange versions right now.
Yeah.
Strange versions. Yeah. And it's like, I swear to God, I feel like the universe is like testing me like.
Yeah. There is a test.
Yeah.
If you part of what we do when we're unevolved and we're we're unevolved about it is we attract people. Like I'll talk about relationally, intimate relationships. We attract people that reflect, us, and they show up. I mean, it's an invitation. We're like puzzle pieces and we come together. We may not come together well, but like my dysfunction meets their dysfunction. My trauma meets their trauma. My healing meets their healing, so on and so forth. And the extent to which I'm healed or, in my shit is the extent to which I attract a partner. That's why I say JP is an evolved version of an old story because I'm an evolved version of an old me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So let me say this, though. What would your counter be to this? So in that, I understand what you're saying about the attraction thing, and I am attracting some strangeness right now.
Well, my whole point is, though, that sometimes when we're making change, like we still show up in certain ways, right? Externally, because that's how we've learned to interact with the world, but we're having internal shifts.
Yeah.
And our invitation is to say, to honor the red flags.
Yes.
We almost always have, like JP, when I first started dating him, JP had a huge red flag for me and I addressed it. Like it was something I always ignored and thought this is going to get better. This is going to be, and I sat him down and said, if this continues, like I'm not telling you have to change, but this is a deal breaker for me and I have to step away and take care of myself.
Yeah.
Like this is not so I'm giving you a chance. Like I'm just letting you know. And I was okay with whether he went or whether he I wanted him to stay. I was in love with him, but I was more in love with the evolved version of me.
Yeah.
And I was willing to let him go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had variations of working that out since.
Yeah.
There's times where I devolve and times where I evolve and time where he devolves and times where he evolves because we're, and we just evolved again.
Yeah.
Of
recent.
But what were you getting ready to say?
Well, I was getting ready to say, so the self-compassion piece and this for me is this reminding me that I'm not doing anything wrong.
No.
To attract these people either into or back into my life. I'm not doing anything wrong. Some of it is has everything to do with them. Yeah. And familiarity and, that kind of thing. The other people who are new coming into my life that are strange and that I want nothing to do with, I'm not that's them also.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything wrong with this. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself.
It's what I do with it.
Yes, it's what I do with it. Mm-hmm. And what I have been doing with it is ninjaing it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at the first whiff. First whiff.
Yeah.
Kindly, no thank you.
That's it. Not trying to be nice and prioritizing their emotions and feel like that's something I haven't really had to contend with is like, why am I prioritizing this person's comfort over my own?
Yeah.
Like, why am I prioritizing this person's comfort over my own?
Right.
Another thing I was talking to a client about, she's like, I went somewhere yesterday and somebody had baked a cake. She's like, because I'm, she's in recovery from an eating disorder. And she said, because I don't eat what other people cook because I don't know what's in it. But this woman just pressured me and I just finally ate the cake that she offered me. I said, it's absolutely okay just to say no.
Right. Yeah. You remind me of that all the time also. There need not be an explanation. Just no thank you.
Well, and sometimes what we're afraid of is a conflict that we perceive. So what we do is when we keep the peace, we create a war within ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? I shared something on Instagram last week. This guy said, if everybody around us is happy, then we're not. Wait. No, if we want to be happy, we can't be happy and have everybody appeased around us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that one also.
Yeah. And he's like, that's the whole video.
Yeah. And I thought about that the other day. I'm in conflict with a lot of people right now.
Because you're literally showing up and choosing yourself.
Yes, yes. And just because there's conflict, again, self-compassion, I have to keep reminding myself I'm not doing anything wrong because I have been programmed from a child, to think that if there is conflict that I am doing something wrong.
Sure.
And it is my responsibility to placate or smooth over or whatever it is. And it's not. Now, there are people within these conflicts that I do eventually hope that we can come to a soft resting place, and then there are some that I'm coming to the realization that there is absolutely no place for them in my life.
Right.
And then it's not because I'm doing something wrong or I can't figure it out or I need to do something different, whatever it is.
Changing yourself is not the answer.
Changing myself is not the answer. Yeah.
Externally.
Right.
Changing yourself internally is the answer.
Yeah.
And so that's a great nuance. And I want to pull that out because I'm sitting here going, because you're saying like, it's not something I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, when I attract a partner, there is something I'm doing. Like, I think the bigger thing is whether I stay in it or not is when I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is you're going through these changes and these people are still coming at you.
Yeah.
That's the invitation
to
do something different. And that's where it gets solidified in our life. And there is this piece. I'll use the example of my burnout, right? When I got burnt out, I realized part of the reason why I was so burnt out is I'm a yes person. Like, especially when it's something that I want to be seen as helpful. Like, I don't really care if you don't like me, especially if it's something that's important to me. I can stand against the crowd on a lot of things if it's important or I feel like it's crucial or important. Like, that's why I'm such a good advocate, right? JP jokes and says, I love the version of you that'll stand on the State House and tell the whole legislature to go fuck themselves in front of their face, But, like, that's why I'm a great advocate. At the same time, like, I don't want to be seen as unhelpful because being helpful is a huge piece of it for me. Like, I'm a helper in my spirit. And so what I do is people come and they say, can you help with this? I'm like, yes. Can you help with this? Yes. And then next thing I know, I'm buried and I can't understand why I can't breathe.
Yeah.
And so when I first quit working full time, JP was like, if you just go get another job, you're just going to create the same dynamic. You need to take some time to just reset. And I'll work more to make that happen. And we didn't know this would be a 4-year, 5-year endeavor, but like this started in 2018 and I'm just feeling like I'm clicking back into myself again, like fully, authentically, and part of it's because I've started going, oh, wait, that version of me isn't out there. It's in here and I have to tend to it in here, but I had to get through everything I went through to get here.
Yeah.
And that's an important part. You're talking about self-compassion for that process. Because I would start into something and somebody would say, can you do something? And I'd say, yes. And I would honestly think that I was making that decision of my own volition.
Yeah.
Like that I was genuinely, honestly saying yes to something I wanted to do. And then I would get into it and I just didn't have the energy. And as soon as it zapped my energy, I knew that wasn't my thing, right? As soon as you see the red flag about the behavior, you know it's not your thing. And then, so we're locked into it at that point. So getting locked into it is ours.
Yeah. Yes.
what we do with it from there is also ours.
Yeah.
That's where, and that's where the conflict arises. So if we're avoiding conflict, we're going to find ourselves in a bunch of relationships where all of a sudden we have to say no, and we have conflict everywhere. When I was trying to recover from burnout, there were opportunities to say yes everywhere. And every time I said yes and I stepped into it and it didn't feel right, I'd have to back out of it. And I'd have to say, I said yes, but I really needed to say no.
Yes, and I knew it.
But here's the thing. That's the part where I learned to build space and recognize it, And so all of those times I said yes. Some of them I really meant yes, and I got into it and realized, oh, wait, this is a no.
Yeah.
And there are other times where I'd say yes and I'd be no, and I'd be like, why am I saying yes? So that's the part where self-compassion comes in, is like we recognize the need to change and we still do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? We still do it anyway. We joke in the program, like when you're in the 6th and 7th step, you recognize there's a behavior you need to change. Most people go head on into that behavior before they change it. Right? Like, it's like, I know I need to change the way I eat. I'm going to eat like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
I know I need to change my sexual habits. I'm going to be like a freak. I know I need to quit drinking. I'm going to like go, It's human nature to do that.
Yeah.
But in doing so, we recognize the ways it doesn't work. And that's where the compassion comes in, the self-compassion, because it's like, oh, wait, if I can change it and see, like my client this morning was like, I have to do this thing. I have to be babysat by this person because I can't be alone. I was like, what would it look like if you said I get to spend time with this person? And she said, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I get to spend time with this person, instead of saying I have to. I know. But then we're building that consciousness, but there's always that gulf of space, which is why we talk about too, like the pendulum swings. If we're a yes person, the pendulum swings and we're like a 2-year-old. It's like, no to everything. And then we kind of got to get back to the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I am right now, is just when it comes to men.
Yeah. Then you look like a cold-hearted bitch.
Yeah. But that's just how I just categorically need to know.
Yeah.
No.
Oh God! When I went through that period of time, I got called a bitch a lot.
Yeah.
Why are you such a bitch? I'm like, I'm not a bitch. I'm actually just saying what I really feel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not prioritizing your experience over mine.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was. I think I told you I was working for Sexual Trauma Services doing a hospital response, and one of my big things is I didn't want people to put their hands on me on a first date without permission. Right, because I was dealing with sexual assault a lot, and I was just really hyperactivated in that. And I can remember one night I was with somebody, and I was sitting appropriately apart, but we were talking, and he just reached in and he rubbed his hand up my thigh. I was like, "Okay, this date's over." He was like, "What?" I was like, "This date's over. I'm leaving." And he was like, "What?" And he stood up. He's like, "You're a fucking bitch." And I was like, "That right there confirms to me exactly what I need to know."
There
you know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, I literally was clear with you, and he was like, "I was feeling the signals." I was like, "The signals you're feeling is that we're actually having some energy in a conversation. That doesn't mean you get to step on my boundaries."
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
I'll take that label. You're right. I'm a fucking bitch. I'm a cunt bitch. I'm the biggest cunt bitch you've ever met. Now go the fuck away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm like a lot nicer about it. But I think that's a great point. That as we go through and we recognize, part of our authentic self is also recognizing the motives for which we act in these things.
Yeah.
And having real forgiveness for ourselves and grieving the versions of ourselves that in the past thought it was acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wrote down also when we were talking last week about grieving long enough or until we become able to sit in the uncomfortable or the sad or the hurt or whatever it is, but grieving it enough to be able to do that and not at the first feeling of grief, and getting out or leaving or ourselves.
Yeah,
leaving ourselves.
not abandoning ourselves. Which comes back to a great example with you and your dad on Christmas Eve, and that's probably a great way to wrap it.
Okay.
Which is the way you were able to sit and not have to delve into the conversation.
Yeah.
And actually probably even put that on a shelf somewhere.
I did, yeah.
We're present with your dad.
Yeah.
Yep. Like that's authentic.
Yes.
That's your authentic self. The self that feels pressured to deal with it, and the one who always has that thought in there, is like that's just so you're there with them, but you're not talking about it, and everybody knows you're not talking about it.
Yes, and that is an old narrative, an old story that has been put upon me also, and that I ate like chocolate cake all my life, is that, oh, Joanna, you know, she's just got to pick that, you know, pick at it. Joanna's got to do that, you know. I was like, that's not, okay, sometimes it is, you know, but that's not always me. There's nothing that's always me like that.
And contextually, it is you in the sense that the picking at it or not being able to address it is you asking to be seen and validated when you're not doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Woo! God.
All the sounds.
Sorry.
The comfort comes from you validate it. You know that this conversation needs to happen, but it comes from a place of very much being able to be centered in yourself.
Yeah.
Validate yourself, to provide yourself that perspective and understanding that it comes from you. You know it's real and valid, and so you provide that for yourself. So even if you never have the conversation, you're not pressured because it's not invalidated by somebody else's experience. It's completely validated within you by your own self in your own experience. Yes. And I had already in my mind, even if my dad had brought it up, you know, because we text messaged back and forth a couple weeks before, and he asked me if something was wrong, and I said, yes, there is. And but it's not a text conversation, you know. And so I'm sure he came into it with the expectation that this conversation was going to happen and stuff. But I had already in my mind preemptively decided for myself, I'm not having this conversation tonight. I'm not. I'm not doing it. And it's not authentic.
It's not authentic. And so had he brought it up and like, you know, well, I know you want to talk about something, so, you know, everybody's gone. You want to talk about it now? I'd already decided, you know, no, Dad, I don't want to do it now.
Yeah.
You know, because that was not what was best for me or the relationship.
Absolutely.
Because I could not probably have a kind, well thought out, present conversation with him.
Sure. Which is, again, authentic self, because you're going to abandon yourself in that process.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the wherewithal to understand, if we have this conversation, I'm going to abandon myself in it.
Whether I shut down or
start hustling for your worth.
Go off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Neither one is what I wanted or needed. So it was best.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, so the idea that, that he could provide something that makes that feel better is a lie.
Yes.
And so I think that's the important part.
Yeah. Yeah, because it would have been nice just to wrap it all up in a nice Christmas colored ribbon and, you know, okay, well, we've handled that. Let's move on and have a great Christmas day.
Is the capacity to even resolve it there? That's like, so that's the other piece of resolution.
The other fallacy. Is that that's.
And that's why you're not ready, because you know that that's probably true. And you need to be able to have this conversation where it's a full stop. Hey, this is how I'm feeling, and this is true no matter how you feel about it, rather than I need you to validate this experience. Yeah. That's where the forgiveness comes in. And I guess a good wrap is going back to where we started, which is understanding that so much of what we have in relationships, especially in terms of conflict points, are not going to be resolved. They're just not.
No.
And it's about holding space for that part of you, that tension in yourself that really struggles with that, wanting to resolve everything.
Yeah. Yes. It's just, it's not possible. And my God, I would never want anyone to put that on me.
Yeah.
And so I in turn don't want to put that on anyone or any relationship, because it's just, unless it's somebody that I see once a year.
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because that's the other part too, is then you also see the parallel experience becomes that the thing you're trying to change is things people come at you with, and you get to see it from the other perspective. And there is an opportunity for self-forgiveness there, because then you're like, wait a minute, okay, this is how I'm showing up.
Oh, all the time.
You know, oh wait, that's what I look like.
Yeah.
That's what? You know, so people are coming to you and they're like, you need to validate my experience. I know that's happened to you recently.
Oh,
and you're like, no, I don't. That's because I have a equally valid alternate experience. Yeah. I have an equally valid alternate experience.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Ugh. So I think the takeaway is, if you're feeling pressured, you're feeling pressured, I had somebody say recently, or actually someone we were reading together, JP and I, said, if it has a narrative attached to it, then you don't need to have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. How do you know if it has a narrative?
Because you sit with it and you observe it.
Okay.
So the narrative is, he always does this, or they always do this, or this is confirmation. Like there's a deeper piece. And most of us believe the narrative and believe that we resolve it with you outside of me, when the narrative has to be resolved internally.
Yeah.
To be functionally resolved externally.
Yeah.
Because then what happens is when I resolve it internally, whether it gets resolved externally or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yes. And so it full circle goes back to what we talked about at the beginning also of, if we believe or it feels like it has to be resolved right now, it's probably, that is something to be very curious about.
Yeah.
Very curious about. Because if we do that, there is no opportunity to sit back and watch. And
there's no differentiation or autonomy in it. We're literally becoming synonymous with the other person and our experience. We expect them to take on our experience, which I've done, I mean, I went through that for like 4 months this summer. Not that there wasn't valid stuff going on, but like my reaction to it was completely enmeshed.
Yeah.
And expecting JP to resolve all of it for me, and he couldn't.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't. Like that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
And then having the moment where I was like, and I kind of came out of it and I'm like, holy shit, what have I been doing? And, but then it was like, I got centered in myself again. Even my therapist was like, oh, there's your sense of self. Oh, I love seeing it. Come back. Like, me too.
Yeah. And also, this is hard stuff. It's hard work.
It is.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and that's where self-compassion comes in. A lot of people think it's stupid, but like we've never shamed ourselves into changing meaningfully. So when I say the pursuit of the authentic self is bullshit, I think the big thing is, what is causing you to be pressured today? Get curious about that and start there. And how does it actually keep you from what you dream you want to be?
Yeah.
And how can you envision yourself in 6 months or a year and start taking action towards that?
Yeah. But it's not going to happen by January 30th or whatever.
No, God, no. Hell no.
Might not even happen within 2023 or even 2024.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard when, when you talk about, like when people talk about that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, how do you, again, if it feels pressured, if it feels like I have to do it right now, like, we could do a whole nother podcast.
I know.
On motivation as a feeling.
Yeah. I think it is important, though, as we wrap here, to look around and give yourselves opportunities to see the tiny shifts that are starting to happen in our lives, even though maybe the whole full Monty thing has not happened. That's progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge progress.
Yeah.
And it's not because they haven't been showing up.
Right.
Because they have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In droves.
That's a whole nother conversation. Damn it, I can't believe I left your present at the house. Because it would be perfect. Anyway, thank you, everybody. So I want to say this, like the new year, new you, like you are you every day. There's no magic in the new year. The magic is what you do every day to resolve being who you want to be in the future. Wrestling with your shit, being curious, having self-compassion, forgiveness for yourself and others.
Yeah. And taking this one little precious life we have and molding it as best we can into what we dream of.
Yeah. Memento mori.
Yeah.
Death awaits us all.
Yeah.
Seriously, death awaits us all.
Yeah. No escaping it.
No.
Might as well make the best out of it.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for being here with us. And we look forward to launching into 2023 with you guys for real.
Yeah.
No New Year, new us, just us, Nude and Lude, showing up.
Just us.
Dropping off the shit.
We'll look the same, talk the same, feel the same, sound the same, all the same.
Yep. As we grow.
That's right.
Scott, thank you. Palmetto Moose Productions, always our guy. Taking care of us. You can catch us. You can actually see us and hear us on YouTube and on Facebook. We actually go live on Facebook. Not live, but we're posted to Facebook, the video. And then you can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And then we have a presence on Instagram. Actually, that's a New Year, New Us project.
Yeah.
Probably do some Instagram stuff. Did I miss anybody, Scott? I didn't miss anything. Okay. Yeah. I love you.
I love you too.
And we love you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for being with us.
Happy New Year!
Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye.